It's 4 o'clock. I think we can get started. No, I don't think you heard me either.
I heard you.
Building anticipation. That was awesome.
That was great. Proclamation.
Sorry, I was texting. Tina's coming. She's going to be just a few minutes late. She's actually boarding my dogs for me. Hi, everybody from Vegas.
Hello.
So do we have a quorum? Okay, I will call the meeting to order at 4:01. Thank you, everybody. I'm sorry that I can't be with you in person. I will call the roll. Mike Cruz is present. Sandra Labarsky.
Here.
Anthony Garcia.
Present.
Claire Johnson.
Present.
Chris Verrill.
Here.
And Tina Zecker.
Matt's here too. You had missed Commissioner McGrath, Chair.
Oh, thank you. I'm so sorry. Matt McGrath.
Here.
Thank you. So upcoming events, just a reminder that we always have in our agenda to please check out Flagstaff 365. And then moving forward to public participation. Do we have any, Jana?
May I add another event announcement?
Oh, please.
This Wednesday, March 15th at 7 o'clock, Flagstaff College and Friends of Flagstaff Future are sponsoring a movie called Stuart Udall and the Politics of Beauty. And it's a wonderful full-length documentary about Udall and the work that he did with the Kennedy and Johnson administration to make this country more beautiful. 7 o'clock at Murdoch, and it's free.
That's Thursday.
This Wednesday.
Very
If
exciting.
you can't make it, I might be able to give you the link.
What time
That
again?
would be
7 o'clock.
You guys post that as a quorum in case more people want to show up?
Pardon?
If four members want to go, you should post it in quorum. I'm just throwing it out there, might be a good preemptive action.
Sure.
To post. I've been to the Murdoch Center where 4 council members showed up at the same time, so it's fresh.
okay. Yeah, so just let Craig know if you're going, and then he'll be able to post it. Okay.
Moving forward to the approval of minutes. Commissioners, did everybody have an opportunity to look at the January minutes? And is there any question for any topic for discussion on those? If there's no discussion, I'll entertain a motion to approve them as submitted.
Motion to approve the minutes as submitted. for
Thank you,
February.
Matt. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Anthony. It's been moved and seconded to approve the meeting minutes of our January BPAC meeting. Craig, do you have your hand up?
I do, Chair. It was Commissioner Verrill that had seconded the motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that was Garcia.
And
I was very flattered, though.
And Chair, I do believe maybe it's the February minutes, aren't we, that we're approving?
Yes.
Oh,
Isn't
yeah, since it is January in the agenda. Good catch. The February minutes. Do we need to remove on that, Craig, or can we just go forward?
Commissioner McGrath, did he motioned correctly? He motioned for the February minutes. So as long-
Okay. And then Commissioner Verrill just seconded, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we're good then. If we're ready for the vote, all in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? The motion carries and the minutes are approved as submitted. Thank you. Moving forward to announcements, looks like staff has several on the agenda.
Yes, I will start, Chair. First of all, Craig's going to bring up something. I'll skip over to another item first, but I did want to let you know, following up on some of the requests that we had, that I did have a meeting with Parks on the Ponderosa park improvements, and I understand that Commissioner Garcia was at a recent public meeting on those improvements, and we will have park staff present to the entire commission in the summer on the project, its, status, and how possibly that, if we wanted to designate a new project for that, so that is definitely in the pipeline, and Parks is on board to come and present us. It'll be June, July, sometime around there. So I wanted to let you know that. Also, looking at those potential conferences and opportunities for commissioners. I took a look at what was over at Desert X, and I'm not really sure that it would be just, even though it's focused theme-wise on, environmental and climate issues, I just didn't find the offerings maybe to be as quite in line with our program as maybe we might have hoped. So, I didn't see that as a really strong venue. What I obviously recommend to you, and we're going to hear a lot more about it later in the agenda, but please plan on attending ArtX. ArtX is, Memorial Day weekend, Friday and Saturday, there's going to be a keynote speaker on Friday and then, on Thursday night, and then Friday and Saturday. And like I said, there's going to be a lot more on that in the agenda, but I really do think that is an opportunity. And if we want to organize something for the commissioners, so that we can go do a few things together, I think that would be really a great thing to do. The other thing that I noted is that the International Sculpture Conference is back on this year. They just made an announcement, and they have a conference in October 11th through the 15th. So as soon as I can get some idea what their agenda will be, I'll review that for possible attendance. And then I did think about us going down to Phoenix, and I've been thinking about whether that should be May or whether that should be in the fall. And I just, I've been mulling that about, and I was wondering if we wanted to do that as part of our October retreat. So anyway, just wanted to know I was carrying the ball forward on those. And then I just wanted to go over, what our, website, it's been updated a little bit. Looks like as far as, where the recordings are. So if you, Craig, would go to just the commissioner page. So, if you go to Flagstaff and you go to boards and commissions, click there. And then you can, it says all the agendas are, you have to find your commission, and you go to beautification and public art. So if someone from the public is looking for it, then it has, where we're meeting now, that remote attendance, availability is there, how to do that, all of our members. And if you go down to the very bottom, and I know it's at the bottom, but it's the recent agendas, but I'm sorry, Chris.
Nice.
If you go right here.
I feel like y'all did that on purpose.
You can get the past recordings. So they are available. So I just wanted to point that out to you so that if you're, want to direct a member of the public to a specific item or anything, you can know where to find it.
I don't think I'll be doing that.
Until next month, right? And then as I wrote you in the email, we're going to be doing some testing with maybe making things in here just a little bit more technologically savvy, and then we are gonna go down to City Hall and have some sample meetings, and then we might have some new commissioners, so we're gonna do this over the summer and do a compare and contrast, and then put it up for the vote for the commission. And so we did order that technology.
Oh, Al?
Owl.
Good.
Whoa, Craig forgot it. He'll be right back with it to show you our beautiful owl. It just came in just so you know what it looks like. You know, and actually I'm gonna just say that I saw it work at Creative Flagstaff, so gonna thank Creative Flagstaff for, you know, showcasing this technology, say either we need one of those. So that the poor people doing remotely don't see that silly picture of the long conference table, which is not very inviting. You know, so I know Claire and Julie and Chair Cruz can see that. So
I see it well enough to know that you're in my spot.
yes, I know. I decided I needed a change of perspective. Yeah, so here's this owl. And yeah, so it's got multiple cameras in the top. And so therefore it focuses on multiple people, and then you know, the person speaking is always showing. So anyway, it's here. It's been a little bit tested, and we're still working with IT to get it all set up in here, but.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for taking care of that. I appreciate it. I'm sure everybody else does as well.
Yeah, thank you, Jana.
Yeah, so, okay, so those were my announcements. Okay.
I have a question about, I like that you mentioned ArtX. I wonder if the commissioners will have a, I don't know, not a role in it, but some sort of something or other that'll be specific to BPAC.
We are commissioning possibly a temporary project, just depending on the weather, that may last for the opening of the library through ArtX, but no, I don't know that we have a specific event. And so I would, you know, if anybody wants to email me about ideas, please do.
It'd be nice if you got invited to some sort of opening, if there's like an opening reception or something.
Yes.
Yes, there is. And I like I said, I think we'll hear more about that on the ArtX discussion item.
Great, thank you. Are there more announcements?
Okay, so, I wanted to let everyone know that after our solicitation for bids, that we ended up selecting Film Tech. I believe they're the people that did the last round. And they came in with a lower bid. I don't have the amounts right off the top of my head, but they're very professional, and they will be able to do the 5 traffic cabinet art reps.
Yeah, this is the vendor that prints and wraps.
Yes.
And it's the same person we had for both the pilot and the last one. Always comes in under the others, so.
Yeah, they're very competitive.
Very competitive.
And what is the cost approximately?
It has gone up.
I think it's like,
I think it's $8,000
Yeah.
for all
and some
5
change.
locations.
Yeah.
Yeah, like $8,700.
And I think the other one was like 13 something, quite a bit.
It wasn't close.
Yeah,
It wasn't close.
so. The other staff announcement I have, unless someone has questions, is the library temporary art proposal. Just an update that I've been working with Rachel Kalmbach of Threaded Together and Lauren Clementino of Library. And they're in concert together. They've had one creation day to create bookmarks and yarn assemblages and bunting on March 4th. And they had a very high turnout, and they have a lot of product being made. I asked them for pictures for the next commission meeting so you can kind of see what they're doing before the installation. Their next Thread Together is April 1st, and they have a lot of people coming. I told them I'd share their flyer with our social media to get more attendance and more people creating the temporary art at the library. they'll be ready to install before the first week in May. And they can forestall it for a week if due to inclement weather, the opening is stalled. And it should last about a month.
Do you know how many people have been involved?
I don't yet. We were just like emailing today and I didn't get a number from her, but I'm gonna follow up with her and get pictures and try to get numbers. Yeah.
Okay, I just have a quick announcement regarding beautification and action grants. So the deadline is March 15th. We've received 3 submissions thus far, which is fantastic, and I'm hoping that we continue that upward momentum. We're working with 8 more applicants in a variety of capacities. So I'm hoping for 8 more applications. I'll take 5, that would be fantastic. And the applicants, it's split. Half are community gardens featuring native plants and other species, and half are murals or mural cycles. And there is one that came in this afternoon, which is for a landscaping project. So hopeful that we have a really nice collection of applications come Wednesday.
Outreach has really been good, and we've gotten some great response.
I just have one announcement. The 15th, excuse me, I believe it's on April 1st, the 15th annual Vital Award ceremony will be held. If any of the commissioners want to attend, they can talk to staff.
And for that, we have 6 of the commissioners who responded, and I think I've heard from everybody now. So, and with the staff, that there's 6 of the 8, and so then we're going to, as staff, choose a couple more people from city staff who partner with our program, extending the vision. So it will be a full table, and unlike last year, it won't be one of the little bar tables at the top. It's going to be a full table down below. We did 4 last year or something like that, 2 bar tables, and so we're looking forward to that. Are there any other commissioner announcements? May I have the time, please?
4:18.
Okay. We are going to go ahead and proceed with action items first. I know the agenda order says we are going to do discussion, but we do have a commissioner who has to leave in 12 minutes, and we're going to see if we can get through some of the action items before she has to depart. Okay, so.
That's actually the order of the agenda, so that's fine.
Yes. And then after that, though, on the discussion items, if we could take the Art X first before the creative Flagstaff. So we'll reverse 2 and 1 for the discussion items.
Sounds good. So moving forward, we've got the traffic signal cabinets phase 3 first.
Yes.
West and Dortha. Okay, go ahead.
Boulevard and Woodlands Village Boulevard. Most of you have seen this slide, but these are the pilot 2020 art reps, Goddess and Sunflowers. We've had great success and popularity with these, and they're very durable and highly contrasted and great to see from the road. The wrap process is pretty straightforward. The artists have included art to cover all 4 sides, potentially the top. Their proposed designs will have to be translated to a large format, vector format. And we will be working with the selected vendor, Film Tech, and the artists to make sure they're working in concert to get the required materials for each box. Just want to mention this again. We do not accept graffiti or advertisements or traffic signage for any of the artwork. This map shows the 2020 pilot locations for Goddess and Sunflowers in blue. The yellow highlights the 2021 locations for Pueblo Unido and Sunnyside, Mountain Lion at Mall Market, and the Black Lumberjack Tribute at Butler and Beaver. And then you'll see in red our new proposed locations for 2023. 3 are at Beulah Boulevard. One is at the entry of Fox Glen, and one is at Dorotha and West. The scoring criteria used by the selection panel was up to 50 points for originality, visual aesthetic, and artistic merit to be able to translate their art into a larger format. The other 50 points, or up to 50 points, was how well the proposal complemented the specific site it was proposed for, and how well it can be enjoyed by vehicular and pedestrian traffic, and how it contributes to that neighborhood. The Northwest Street and Dorotha Avenue is a 2-box location with high visibility and a pedestrian signal light. Lots of school-age children trafficking, walking through this area. We want to mention the selection panelists who did a stellar job on this location. Commissioner Anthony Garcia, Commissioner Matt McGrath, Sunnyside resident and former BPAC chair, Carla McCord, the recreation coordinator, Krista Wharton, and the Flagstaff Unified School District teacher, Allison Botke. Without you, we couldn't have made it to this point, and we really appreciate your contributions. Thank you. The first recommended proposal is for Dorotha, and it is by Kiara Scabland. And this is for the large box. On the left, you'll see the hand with the butterflies. That's proposed for the front. The smaller corn or yellow is the side. The little plant with the hand is the back. And then the right-hand side with the Emily Dickinson poem. There was some thoughts that maybe we should have this removed and replaced with the name of the art, which is Rise, which you'll see in the next slide. The top of the box is shown at the top of the slide.
Yeah, the panel had a little problem with maybe the amen wouldn't go over well. They also had a little problem with the typography. It is something we will discuss with the, with the artist, on the direction on that.
The medium box right next to it, her artwork is called Rise, and you see that on the side. The front is the sunflower with the bees, and the back is the corn, and the top would be the same as the first box. And this is the 3-dimensional depiction showing the fronts of the cabinets in place. The recommended alternate was Katie Cochran. She did a little pollinator series of bees with Be Kind. She was not the first alternate pick. The person we did pick ended up being selected for the next box, so she was the next highest scoring candidate.
And if something should happen and, hers go forward, if something at Kira's somehow didn't work out, we would have to have her change the words to the back.
Yes.
Traffic might have an issue with having words on the front.
Yeah, we have to keep that cautionary thing too.
Right.
So this is the other box. Quick look, and then a 3-dimensional depiction. Any questions or comments or discussion?
Yeah, I love Kiara's. I'm so glad you selected that. And because you were considering the other boxes on Beulah.
Right, and Zula and, Overjack?
Right.
Yes, yes.
My only, I'd just like to say, I love the Emily Dickinson poem, and I'd like to see it preserved. I don't hear any kind of religious overtones, specifically religious overtones, more of a, well, it is reverential, but it's not specifically with the particular tradition. And I also think it's because it's not on because it's a pedestrian neighborhood, that it's really appropriate language, poetry, interspersed when we can.
Commissioner Garcia, you were part of that conversation. Do you want to tell a little bit about what the concern was of the selection panel?
Yeah, I don't think that it was the entire, and Matt was also there too. You could probably speak to this as well. I was in some spotty landscape. But it wasn't necessarily the entire quote. It was just the amen at the end. And I also agree with that. I mean, that sometimes one word can change the way you look at the entire phrase if it's under the wrong context. So that was my understanding of it was the amen that wanted to be stricken from it, and that the idea that you can't just take one word out of a quote and mess up the whole quote, so on and so forth. And then it was suggested that we put just the name rise to cover that up. But I do see your point. I think that's good as well. I still have a problem with the amen myself.
I hear the amen as an enthusiastic yes.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
not as a
right,
prayer.
right. Like amen, brother, sister.
I think there were three of us that kind of had some concern about the amen. Anthony shared his. I could take it or leave it. I like the idea of something from Emily Dickinson. I like the idea of encouraging people to go look up Emily Dickinson. I didn't think that was a particularly strong quote that added much to it. That was kind of what I was thinking. So with the amen attached to it, I thought I could take it or leave it. If it stays, it stays. I like the rise better, but it was not like, it wasn't really strong. Like, we must remove that quote. It was more, but I would prefer to put the rise, but.
A little different Emily Dickinson.
I think so. I don't know how much you could fit on the side of that, but I mean, just personally, that quote is like, it's pretty straightforward in your face. It's not particularly inspiring. So I thought maybe there would be something better from her vast catalog that would fit there.
Or a Mary Oliver poem would fit nicely. I just like the integration of poetry.
Oh, I do, and right there by the school especially, I mean, I think it makes total sense.
At the same time, how much can we interject in an art piece? That's something that we have to
This
ask.
will only be a discussion, it will not be a strong direction. The other, I think, point that was also brought up was that maybe this particular population didn't relate to Emily Dickinson much. They might relate to somebody else, and so there was that concern as well. And then there was concern just about typography.
Yeah.
I remember there was a book, at least one book person who really hated that typography, but on the quote itself, and then I loved the other. So that, just to carry the full discussion forward. So it's just something, like I said, it won't be
Right,
thou
back
shalt.
to that slide,
So
yeah.
it'll just be a discussion. We'll see what the others think.
I have a comment. I really appreciate the amen. I think it's a word that's unifying. I think a lot of different faiths say amen. So it's not specific, in my view, it's not specific to any one religion. And I think it also just, people in conversation, in agreement, will say amen without necessarily having a religious undertone. So it doesn't bother me at all. I like the idea of leaving it in if it's going to keep the quote intact. That's my 2 cents about it. I love the artwork. Thanks to the folks who were on that selection panel. I think it looks great.
And I meant to mention just a quick thing from her paperwork. She mentioned she's from Flagstaff. She's a mixed media textile artist, and her goal was to create work that inspires viewers to reflect more carefully on the world around them and environmental issues, paraphrased.
I like it. Shows depth and intentionality with her design. Any other discussion, folks? Are we ready to vote?
I just wanted to add one last thing. This was not my favorite piece, but we're not gonna go into that. But the whole sunflower thing on these boxes, like in the future, if we're on a panel, we should just take that into consideration. It is an invasive species. The only reason it's so popular is because it takes over all of our plants. And now we're starting to put it on all of our, electrical boxes. What are we gonna do next? But it's fine. And with that being said, I'd invite Matt to.
This was my favorite of all of the proposals, and I can't speak to the scoring, but and obviously it was not a consensus, but it seemed pretty strong among the panel, that this was the majority of folks preferred one. I think it's super strong. I love the color. I love the messaging. I like the rise. I think just the rise is more impactful, just short, sweet, to the point. And then not adding, that's why adding with the quote, I can take or leave the quote. I think the rise would work just as well. But I think just sharing what other folks were thinking, I think it was pretty popular among the group.
You want to make a motion?
For that, or are we talking about the second one, or are we talking?
No, we got a motion. Somebody has to make a motion.
Okay, well then I will make a motion that we recommend Scotland's proposal is number one.
And I will second.
Thank you. Are we also using the same
Recommend
the same
alternate.
motion to approve the alternate?
Yes.
Okay, so Matt and Anthony, you guys are okay with choosing Cochran as the alternate?
Yes, I am.
Yes, it was my number 3, but number 2 got poached for the other box.
Poached.
So it's been moved and seconded to recommend to staff the proposal by Shiara Scabeland and to also approve the alternate from Katie Cochran. Any more discussion, or if you're in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstained? The motion carries. Thank you.
Along to South Beulah Boulevard and South Woodlands Village Road. Again, we have 2 cabinets, primarily of vehicular and bike traffic near Big 5. And so it has high visibility. Again, selection panelists, we want to honor your contributions. Vice Chair Sandra Lavarski, thank you. Commissioner Claire Johnson, NAU instructor Kevin Jemmels, Super Citizen Gayleen Soper, and Super Citizen Francine Moore. Thank you very much, you guys. The recommended proposal for this location is by Dwayne Koyawena. He has a Hopi symbolism art. The first image on the left would be the front and back of the large cabinet. The middle image, Pikuna, is for all 4 sides. And the image on the right is proposed for the medium or smaller cabinet, front and back. And the artist, I'm just going to take a little excerpt from his artist statement. The artwork includes symbols and design elements that are important to Hopi people. Together, these convey the concepts that are guidelines for leading a good life. They remind us to strive to live in a good way, to be caretakers of the land, and continue to practice our culture. And he goes into all of the different symbolism. So that is the first. The recommended alternate is Lindsay Hansen, and her artwork shown here. The image on the left would be the front of the large cabinet and the sunrise in the back. And then the sides are kind of the conifers with snow. And then the smaller box would have the sunrise on the front and the Grand Canyon on the back with the same sides of the conifers. And then the top just has the sun rays going across. I don't know if I went too fast on that. Do you want to see it again, or are you all set?
I want to get a sense of what the symbolism on the first one actually does mean.
She took her art from different paintings.
Yes, I think he's asking about Dwayne's.
Oh, Dwayne's, I'm sorry. I apologize.
We have that note,
Misunderstood.
don't we?
He says, the red represents the land. The I don't know if I'm saying this right, Tusqua, and is a reminder to value the land and all it provides. The green, blue, and yellow colors represent male and female. It is associated with life and fertility. The black lines and white dashes symbolize the importance of moisture to the land. The Pacuna design includes the colors of green and black. Green symbolizes our crops. Black represents moisture. So that's.
My question is, so the middle image that we're seeing here on the screen is going to decorate all connecting sides to both boxes?
Yes,
It's gonna be the sides of the large box and the sides of the medium box.
And what's going to be on top?
That is not known.
Yeah.
And that is something that we will have to discuss with the artist. We can obviously see that the large box of the sun rays might be extended on the top, or maybe he'll come up with something else. And he
Sort of
did think,
transition.
or maybe he wants to leave it blank.
yeah.
It is possible to leave it blank.
Yeah.
So that is, yeah,
They
something
had
that
that.
should be considered.
I had submitted a design for the top. This is the only slide we have?
He only submitted one.
No. A lot of the artists didn't submit all sides.
Well, he didn't show his on the box. The other ones you can, even though like the next one,
Right,
when you see her box, you can see how it goes on the top.
right.
But he didn't show a three-dimensional look.
Right.
And can we go back to just the boxes themselves, the first slide?
Oh, sure.
So I can kind of get an idea of what that's gonna be. Oh, I see. I guess it's not as important, but I just would hate for, or unless it's part of the art itself, to leave that top exposed, depending on the height of your vehicle. It could change the way you view the art in particular. It doesn't have to be enclosed completely. I mean, it's just my thought.
I would think it would. I think it looks like a mistake if it's the top's not done.
I would agree with that. I would hate to see that silver top.
I mean, we can work with the artist, right?
Right, oh,
Make
absolutely.
recommendations.
Yes, we can, we will ask that, let's just say that, you can give your recommended approval to staff for this proposal, but to include additional design for the top.
Yeah, and since staff mentioned that what could go over the top, who knows what the possibilities are, but it could be extended of those sun rays. My idea is that it could just be extended of the green and black or some other type design to where it looks like a rug covering the top and laying over on each side.
Oh,
you
that's
know, for
interesting.
instance. Yeah, so it's too big, at least.
Right.
For the Pacuna.
Yeah, and then I don't know, I guess let's flesh out the discussion here, but before we go to voting, I have something else to talk about.
Is it related to this?
It is, it's related to both of these, but I mean, since we're on this one now, I waited until this one to talk about it.
Yeah. Let's have it.
Okay, so as, you know, since our job isn't just to jury art thumbs up and thumbs downing what things look like on a surface, but also more on like a policy or level to create good standards. When it comes to these art boxes, we saw in these submissions, which was good, both good and bad, that artists chose different selection sites to display one of their pieces of art, you know, to enter into all the different sites that were available, that one piece of art. Are we okay as a committee to leave that way to where one artist can just, you know, send shotgun it out to whatever sites are available? Or should we require that for each site, they do a different piece of art?
I would like to respond that when we put the call out, first of all, they couldn't do it to every single one. They were
Okay.
limited to 3. And they had the choice, they could submit they could do 3 different proposals for one location, or they could do 3 different proposals for 3 different locations, or they could do 1 proposal for multiple locations. We kind of left it up to them. And there was only about 2 artists, and I think you saw both of them today,
Yes.
were the ones that submitted the same proposal for basically 2 different sites.
Right.
I think Dwayne actually submitted for 3 different sites.
Yes, he
And
did.
Kiera only submitted for 2. So you're actually seeing the only 2 artists who made that option.
Currently, yeah.
Most of them chose to do different proposals for different sites. And we limited everybody to 3 proposals. And there were some policy reasons for that. You know, they're doing all these proposals for free.
Sure.
I don't think that it's, you know, fair to ask these artists for so much because they'll feel obligated. You know,
Well,
to
but
do
at the
so.
same time, I mean, that, I see that perspective of it, but if they just feel like doing it for one site, one proposal, then that's fine. But if they want to put their other art out on the other ones, it wouldn't be an ask for that. I mean, it wouldn't be
Right.
over obligating them. It would,
We, you
it would
know,
be diversifying our pool.
right, I'm just saying that we gave that option to the artists and let them decide. And in the mix, we only had, out of the many, many artists who applied this time, we really only had 2 that did the same proposal for multiple sites. Everyone else chose, if they did multiple sites, they chose different proposals
I
automatically.
appreciate that. That's good.
Yeah.
And so is this the first time they've been given that option, or is this the first time we saw that?
I think, first of all, we only had 2 sites left, the pilot. So it really didn't come into play. And I think last time we did allow it, but nobody did it.
Okay. So what does the group think as far as what staff did? I like what staff did, but I wouldn't be talking about it if I didn't think that in the future, since the first time we didn't see it, the second time we saw it and did 2 different ways, I see in the future, who knows what the possibilities are, and I just wanted to have a discussion about it. Does anybody else have any ideas?
I like what we did because Dwayne was on the traffic cabinet for Fox Glen and he was not selected. So the fact that an artist has the opportunity to try 3 different times with a piece of art, I think that's good because it gives him or her a better chance of being selected. And I just like that. I mean, I like that an artist is really interested in putting his or her work out there, that they would try different locations. I think one of the criteria is that the specific art should be related somehow to the location. And so if an artist chooses the exact same piece for 3 different locations across town, then that's sort of a risk that he or she takes with the committee member selecting the piece of art for that specific site. So I personally like how staff ran this particular call.
I would agree with that. I would add that I think it increases the quality of art that we get submitted.
Okay. And I like the way staff did it too. I mean, they kind of went, they got in front of the problem before there was a problem. And I love that. That was very creative. The only issue I guess I kind of see with it, because I was recently a part of a panel who had like duplicative artists who could position themselves to be first on a different, you know, different sections, I guess, just like different boxes. Are we going to get to a point with staff at some point going, well, this one has already been selected for another box, so, and how do we finish that out? I'm fine with just letting that come, you know, that argument come up when it gets here, but that's the reason I brought this forward. So I'm cool with the way things went and I appreciate the conversation. Thank you guys. Really, I'm ready to vote.
Thank you, Commissioner Garcia, because obviously, in a way, Dwayne's piece was at the top of two of the locations. It didn't seem to be at the third. And it could have been that he might have been the top recommended for both. And there would have been and it actually, we would have, as staff, brought it back to those two selection panels.
Sure.
And we would brought those two selection panels together and decide and had then have a discussion and make a recommendation to staff. That's how we would have handled it.
Cool. Staff, you guys are doing a great job. Thank you.
So now we're at the questions, comments. I think we've covered that, but if there might be more, so.
So, a comment, maybe a question. So obviously Hopi tribe has a very strong connection to the peaks. We actually consult with 13 tribes related to the San Francisco Peaks traditional cultural property. Hopi, Navajo, my day job, Hopi, Navajo, Qualified, Havasupai, I would say have kind of the strongest connections to it. And so I'm always a little concerned picking one over the other. Obviously, it was a Hopi artist that submitted the proposal. And if it was a qualified or Havasupai artist, we would evaluate that. Is there, they have very strong feelings on how peaks are represented. We had talked in our group about the Indigenous Commission reviewing this.
Yes, and
Is
we
that
talked
something?
about it, in this panel as well, Commissioner McGrath, and we're gonna consult with, first of all, the coordinator for Indigenous Initiatives, Rose Toki, and if necessary, take it before her permission, before we actually go forward, just to make sure that there is nothing offensive to the other side. It's perfectly fine that it's specific.
It is,
It's
but-
perfectly fine that it's specific, but we will make sure that there's nothing that, will set off any alarm.
I think this one is straightforward and great. And I don't think anybody would object, but in the
Right.
future, there's
Right.
certainly
We're
the
gonna-
opportunity for,
No, we're gonna have that process
Like
and
that.
it's right. And we don't know what the outcome of the other locations are. It may be because we do have some, from the comments, some highly rated, proposals from members of other tribes. So it may be that we have a mix. I don't know because I'm not voting. We don't know what the outcome is. So we'll wait till all the votes are in and then we'll consult with Rose. And then and if we need to take it before her commitment, we'll go.
okay, great, thank you.
I love this panel and the only request I have or what I'd like to see is some kind of explanation that people can understand the symbols. And we talked about a QR code or some way to educate the public about what they're seeing. I don't know how you want to, you talked a bit about doing
consider
some
that.
kind of
We
thing.
can consider a QR code. Again, though, the artist would have to want to have it on the QR code, on the box itself. And, because it may be that it's just, like some people recognize certain symbols, and it's kind of, I think we would definitely have something on our website, but whether or not we will do a QR code, I would really want to consult with the artist. Because it has to integrate in their design.
Right. No, that's again where I think
It's good to have
words are
this.
helpful, but I don't know how he would feel about adding something about soil, water, earth. But, most people are just going to see it as a design, and I think he means it as something much more than that. So,
We will take those comments to the artist, definitely.
I would agree with Sandra's thoughts. If there were a way that someone would walk up to it and see more than just something beautiful, I could get a sense of the meaning behind it in some way. I think that would add to it.
What about since it's just one-sided? I don't even.
I think it's worth having a conversation with him because
Yes.
in his statement, he's clearly saying there's a narrative
Right.
involved in this. So,
And I was thinking like if I don't know how you could convey this because we're not the artist, but he has a whole other side that could be the narrative if it's not the traffic facing side or whatever. With the words, that can be done creatively.
I'd like to just remind folks that the artist had the opportunity to include any words that he wanted to, right?
Yes.
And so I wonder if we're imposing our non-Indigenous expectations or views on an artist who clearly had the opportunity to include words if he wanted to.
Well, I don't think we're imposing anything. We're simply having a conversation. I think it's worth a conversation with him. That would be my suggestion. But definitely not impose.
Yeah, let's try to stay away from imposing.
No, that doesn't believe in imposing.
So then are we ready to make the motion and vote?
I move to approve the recommendation of Dwayne Coyahuina's design and the alternate proposal by Lindsay Hanson.
Thank you. May I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve Dwayne Coyahuina as the primary artist and Lindsay Hansen as the alternative. Are there any more items for discussion, or all in favor say aye?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? The motion carries. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Moving forward, I think we're going to talk about ArtX first.
Yes.
Julie Sokol,
Where should I sit?
what?
I'm also on that one. Where should I sit?
Okay, also
Wherever you'd like.
Jonathan Stone, who's present, Executive Director of Creative Flagstaff.
Gentlemen. We're right here, wherever you'd like.
Well, I just see me.
Yeah, totally right here, wherever you'd like, John.
Craig, did you note that Tina Zecker just joined?
I did. She joined at 4:33 chair, or
Oh.
4:48. And Commissioner Johnson left at 4:33. My apologies.
Oh. Thank you. Are we ready? Jonathan?
Yes, and Julia is primarily presenting this. I'm just going to support.
Oh, I see. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm joining remotely, so I'm sorry to miss everyone in person, but I can go ahead and drive the presentation unless you already have it pulled up.
No, we have a PDF. We didn't get the PowerPoint.
All right, give me just a moment.
Yeah.
Oh, Teams doesn't want to give me permissions to share with you guys.
We have our problems.
Do you mind if we drive from that same PDF that you already have?
I don't.
Craig will pull it up. What?
I thought you preferred PDF, so.
And we have to do PDF to send it out to the commissioners, but we usually present from PowerPoint.
All of our supported files.
Yeah, sorry, Teams does not seem to like me for some reason trying to share at all. Jonathan, do you mind sharing?
No, Craig.
Craig's got it.
Craig
There we
is
go.
You took me a
Okay.
minute.
All right, well, thank you guys so much for giving us the time to talk about ArtX. I actually have a few thank yous for this group because we also had Jana and Anthony for participating as jurors in ArtX and for all of you for allocating funds. So specifically for this project, for my piece of things, we began with $40,000 worth of honoraria that was decided and divided between a total of 14 different projects. And so when I joined in December, I was very anxious because we only were beginning with 2 submissions at that moment. And we ended up very excitedly closing the call for entries just about a month later with almost 40 submissions and really qualified ones. So if you don't mind scrolling through just a tiny bit, I will tell you about all 14 of those projects. The slide right here, if you did have a chance to look at it, talks briefly at a high level of what we plan the pilot event to look like. So it will take place primarily focused in downtown Flagstaff, and we are pushing into Sunnyside. I'm sorry, into Southside. I'm excited for Sunnyside. That'll be next year. We'll be pushing into Southside a bit as well for some of our venues. But all 14 of those projects will be available for viewing, participating, exploring over Friday and Saturday of Memorial Day weekend. And as Jana mentioned earlier, on that Thursday evening, there will be a save the date coming your way very soon, hopefully with an announcement of who our keynote speaker will be as well. And that will be sort of a launch to the pilot event to invite the community, invite commissioners as an educational piece for what public art and engagement can look like, with some examples from across the country, and also just to give some excitement and some teasers of what the weekend holds as far as events and exhibitions. If you could keep scrolling, I will talk you guys through some of the projects and why they're so special to us and to this group particularly, as we're based in Flagstaff. This what if question will take a look at the website. And you'll see it on the main landing page. It's what if you pair A with a blank. And so the idea is to continue this effort that Flagstaff sees and has been doing for a really long time to make things interdisciplinary and to use the arts and creative sector to help answer some really tough questions. So all of the submissions that came through are interactive, interdisciplinary, and brought together some really interesting pairings that I think even our group maybe wasn't expecting. So people get it, they understand the idea and the intention, and hopefully it does lead to some conversations around some really interesting and critical social challenges and issues that are affecting not only Flagstaff, but the Southwest. So some of the projects as we go through, I'll highlight what those social things, items were that the artists are having conversation or making commentary around, whether that's ecosystems, habitat restoration, fire and forest health, and also cost of living and many other topics. So anyway, I'll try to go quickly because there are 14 of them. And I'll just say also that the website, the portion around the artists and their projects, their collaborations is completely built out, except for one who is still hoping to commit fully. So you can read more about all of the projects. I'll just give you a quick high level, and thank you for scrolling for me. We can keep going and I'll talk through them, but please, I interrupt if you have any questions in the meantime. So this first one is called Bridges of Flagstaff. It'll be a large sculptural piece with 4 different bridges for the cardinal directions, and this is a huge collaboration. They've also secured some additional artists to participate, including Emma Gardner and Jean Taubeguet. So this is going to be a fun, large-scale piece. You can keep going, please. Thanks. Capoeira, I think probably most people have seen perform. This one will take place in Heritage Square, and we do have an excellent partnership with Downtown Business Alliance. They've been incredibly supportive of us, and so they are sharing sort of their space on Friday and Saturday as well. The Urban Quilt Project is going to be super fun. You'll see quilts that the Coconino Quilt Guild has either made or is working on. So some pieces will be being made during the weekend. And this is in partnership with Foster Teens. So these will be popped up in windows of downtown businesses and restaurants, the visitor center. So all over you'll see bright fabric art all around town. And this one is still open. So if you guys have other thoughts or suggestions of businesses that maybe we haven't considered yet that have a window space or a wall space, send them my way. My favorite. This is the rock opera. This is a modern rock opera about ferrets. Yes, I can't make it up.
I was a big voter on this one.
It's so fun. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. It's a rock opera about ferrets. It's lovely and it's going to be exciting, and you'll have to see it if you want to know more. The Sun Ra Earthly Arrival Party, this one is sort of presented by Interference Series, and they've done it, I think, every year for many years here in Flagstaff. So this will be part of the Friday evening performance that is mainly focused around the Orpheum. So they will do a second line march through downtown to the Orpheum, and then do the actual performance inside the Orpheum. So this was really sort of the kickoff excitement piece on Friday afternoon, early evening. The Physicist and the Shaman is a lovely submission that we received. Eric Gonzalez is many things. He's a uphill unicycler, best in the world, apparently. Oh dear. Sorry, I just dropped off for a minute. I'm going to blame my internet for that. Eric Gonzalez is an uphill unicycler. He's also a physicist and a scientist. He's going to teach us about forest bathing and meditation in his presentation. Mac Barnes, her piece is called Peeking Through Change. This is another installation sculptural piece, and it's 3 pieces that sort of sit in line with each other. And as you move around the piece, your perspective literally changes and you'll see different pieces and different art within the structure itself. I can't wait to tell you where it's going to be installed as soon as I find out. This was called A Sense of Memory. Julia Jai is coming up from Tucson, and this is a really fun one. She's got lots of small boxes that will be mounted on a wall at different heights, so anyone could go up and open the box. And inside will be something to elicit a memory, a scent, something to see. Some of them will have headphones so you can hear music or sounds or someone telling a story to elicit some kind of a memory. And then she has an interactive piece where you can write down a memory that maybe you're reminded of after being through her exhibit. This is really fun. I'm excited to see how it comes together. All of the businesses and organizations and partner businesses on North Phoenix Avenue, basically from 4A all the way east, including, of course, Human Nature Dance. They are coming together to do sort of a street party performance with dance and film and music and food, and that will be both on Friday evening and during the day Saturday. If you get to join us on Thursday evening for our launch event, you'll get to see a sort of a teaser of this group, which is Blooming from the Ashes. They really did a lovely job of bringing together the interdisciplinary idea. And they're also telling a great story here. So they've got the Southwest Fire Science Ecology group from NAU. We've got 2 different floral artists and flower farms and aerial dance. And they're all coming together to tell the story of the wildfires, forest health and ecology sort of before and after and what that looks like moving forward. And they're also including some music and poetry. And they are working very closely with MoCAF and the Interference series so that at the end of their performance, everyone will be invited to move outside at the Orpheum. They'll be inside on the stage, but they'll move everyone outside sort of into the MoCAF space, who's a collaborator for that evening on Friday evening, to be a part of an altar. So they're going to build a flower altar. And so that you could actually have some participation and giving back at the end of it. They're inviting people to take the flowers home with them and gift them to someone else. So this was a really big piece. It has grown just in the last couple of weeks. So I'm excited to see how this one comes together as well. Matriarchs Levon is a 4-foot by 4-foot sort of a classic oil painting, but the theme itself is about what the matriarchal lineage looks like for a Dene woman and what a sort of modern Dene woman's life looks like versus the sort of classic portraiture. And this piece is actually going to be hung and displayed for a bit longer than the actual festival dates in partnership with the Arizona Community Foundation at their new office downtown, sort of across from Theatricos. This is another fun one that I'm excited Ardex gets to sort of help participate in launching it. This is Mountain Lines. This is 2 women from Museum of Northern Arizona, and they will be putting the placards that normally have adverts on them, replacing those with poetry and artwork. both inside the buses, which will be up for, I believe, a whole year, and 2 of the buses will have the larger adverts on the outside of the buses circulating for the month of May. So really bringing art and poetry to everyone, regardless of where you physically are in the city, and trying to reduce those financial barriers so that no matter where you are in life, you still get a little taste of art and poetry. This is a large presentation and performance piece with lots of folks and moving parts. And it's the English translation is resistance art. They're doing all kinds of things from poetry and dance to performance. And yeah, it's going to be amazing. I'm so excited for this one to come through. And this is my last one with Brian Griffith. We're trying to figure out the best venue for him. And this actually gives me an opportunity to talk very briefly on some of the fun venues and partnerships that we've established. So I'm really hoping Brian's piece will work well. He's got an installation with aspen leaves that are preserved in beeswax and then hung on very thin filament so that it creates a cloud of aspen leaves. And as you walk around the piece, because they're on such fine filament, it moves in response to the air that you are moving as you breathe and as you walk around it. So it's really lovely. He's done one similarly, so we have some idea of what it looks like in its actual, full form. But in trying to find a home for this piece, we've had great partnership from Knackered Pepsi, their original bottling facility down on Cottage Ave, sort of across from Tourist Home or behind the mayor. They have opened up one of the bays, one of the garage bays, and they are in the process of clearing it out, cleaning it up, painting it, and turning it into the Knackered Gallery, which will be very exciting. I hope it's all the things we all are hoping it will be, but Palmer Knackered is very excited to create this new space. They've been excited to do something with it for a long time, so we're giving them an excuse. And the idea is that it may become a permanent exhibit space. So hopefully creating more space in future for other artists and other projects. So this last slide is my suggestion for you guys to, join more committees and participate. We have our next community meeting happening at the end of the month. And you're certainly welcome if you have questions or comments and concerns. Of course, Jana is my lifeline, so thank you for all of your support and communication there. Again, Anthony, thanks for being a juror, so I didn't have to make any decisions. I just get to give people, keep flowing this money through directly to artists, which is the best part of my job. So thank you guys for giving me that opportunity to continue funding all of our local artists. Everyone that we went through is in either Coconino or Navajo County as their primary residence. So it's lovely that we have all these fun projects, but even better that all this money is staying locally, going directly to our artists. I'm just looking through and making sure I didn't miss anybody. The website is live right now. If you'd like to go and learn more about the projects and the artists, it is artxideas.org. And before I wrap it up, I know that Jonathan is physically there in the room with you and doesn't have any weird internet issues. So if you have questions, I'm going to turn it over to Jonathan in case I missed anything. Thank you guys so much.
Before we move on to questions, I thank you, Julie. We're really, really excited to have Julie on our team to make this happen. But also Chair Cruz and Commission, thank you for the opportunity to present. As you can see, ArtX is a very fast-moving project, and it started with an intention to hire a director for it, as well as a call for entry and a rough idea about what we were trying to accomplish. And as I hope some of these examples of projects help illustrate, make it a little more specific as to what ArtX is. And it really, really, it comes down to when we start asking those what if questions. So if you go to the website, it's the first thing that comes up on the screen. It's like, what if? And I think it really, ArtX is our opportunity to really celebrate that intersectionality, that interdisciplinary spirit of Flagstaff. And those are intersections not just of arts and science, but of culture, of our intersection with place, and that when ArtX goes to a fuller scale next year, that the possibilities are even greater, right? With more time, and what we're hoping are more resources to make it happen, then, you know, I think it will really kind of start to take off for the community. So just as a reminder about this pilot event, it is a pilot event, and it is a very small scale. And so, and part of the reason we're doing this keynote event on Thursday night is to kind of wrap it all up with a bow, because some of our goals coming out of the pilot is not just about experiencing the work that's being presented. It's about energizing the community to go forward and to really kind of start to embrace creative placemaking and to embrace what art can mean in different aspects of our life. So that's, you know, we're placing a lot on this pilot in terms of the message and the change that it can have with us. But of course, all of that is only possible to the extent that we participate as a community in that experience together. So, any questions?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. My one immediate was, I'm sorry, I couldn't see the price tag on the bus wrap one. Was it just $1,000?
They only asked for 1,000. If Julie, if you could back me up, this was treated as a grant program. So it ran through our sort of normal grant process, and every applicant was asked to present which award amounts, and we gave them a range from $500 to $10,000 that they were able to accept. And then what we ended up doing is taking the jury's scores on a few different criteria, and then we ended up being able to rank the projects in score order, and then have conversations about each of them, and try to fit that puzzle together to fit within the budget that we allowed ourselves, or that was available for this purpose. And I believe, Julie, can you back me up on that?
Yes, that's correct. They only requested $1,000. It is in partnership with NAPTA and Mountain Line. So it's only $1,000, which means for next year, there's opportunity for more buses and more placards.
And so when I'm meaning when they say it's a normal grant thing, is that we expected a mix of applications that were between organizations that are sort of normally suited for the grant program with matches, other resources, and then artists themselves. And so we did not require a match, but a match was implied in some sense that it was up to the applicant to kind of in their narrative say what different dollar amounts meant to their project.
Okay, I mean, my concern was, I think that our wraps cost a lot more.
So
And the question was, what if they fall short?
Yeah.
What if they're working with NAPTA
Yeah.
and they've got a backup?
Right. I imagine that NAPTA is committed to that.
And Jonathan, we're gonna wrap here, right?
No, these are the standard advertisements. So they're the rectangular. So NAPTA has a pretty well established cost structure with those. So I imagine they have that sort of.
Yeah, okay, got it.
The blacker part, yes.
I do have actually a different kind of question, and that is, and I think I brought it up months ago when we were first talking about this, but the Memorial Day weekend thing. And, you know, there is I think there's a movement underway across the country to really make Memorial Day weekend more than a festivities. That because it's really lost what it was about. And that is that underside, that dark shadow of memorializing the loss, the tremendous loss. And I'm wondering if there's any thought to that, and maybe my suggestion is that in that special lecture, especially this launch event with the flower altar, that there's some way to integrate a to refer to the point of
Yeah.
Memorial Day in the country.
I appreciate that point, and I imagine Julie does too. And the date discussion is still, it's not fluid for this year, but there are some other factors that may influence exactly when it falls for the Fuller event in 2024. And that may influence whether it starts, say, like the weekend before. And that the Memorial Day weekend isn't the primary focus. So that's in discussion, but there are other external factors that are, can have a heavier influence on the scheduling from a logistics standpoint, especially those with the university, for example. I can't say exactly what the methodology is going to be for next year. The festival committee did spend a lot of time talking about the date and how they came up like 2 years. But I know Chris is probably recusing himself at this moment. But that was a long conversation. But I really think that's a great idea to make sure that at some point in the programming that there is an acknowledgement of the time.
Sandra, I think that's an excellent point. You know, and rather than just being a 3-day weekend, I think we should remember why it's a 3-day weekend and include that in some of what we're doing. Now, as Jonathan just pointed out, whether or not it's on this weekend in 2024, we don't know. But for this year, yeah.
I would like to see, I think it's important that we don't lose that connection to the
Well, and hopefully, and maybe if it does land on Memorial Day weekend, we can do some cultivation that results in maybe some project submissions that also reflect on that purpose as well.
I guess I had another question, Jonathan, and I know that this is just an inception and this is just a pilot and we're building as we go. But I was curious, so we have locations sometimes figured out, sometimes not. We have art pieces sometimes figured out in those locations. Now, maybe not for this year, but in the future, if there are, let's say, businesses that had maybe some art that they wanted to display, would you be amenable to, adding them to the fray as far as stops on the tour? Okay, because I'm going to do my best with the connections I have to get something happening with a business that's not part of this.
So the fringe, which we're calling collaborations at this point, but it is very much the intention for ArtX to be bigger than the funded projects, and that's also part of its design, right, which is intended to inspire private investment in cultural experiences. And so we very much hope that there will be other collaborators, and it's my understanding that Julie has been in talks with a number of people that are all very interested in collaborating. And that call was going to be made more public with the public meeting we were supposed to have, I think it was 2 weeks ago, last week, which was canceled because of the snowstorm. So, but our social media is up and live now. The website's up and live, and as soon as we can even maybe send to the commission additional information about those collaborative opportunities.
Indeed, Commissioner Carroll, may I call on you? You're doing a fringe event, are you not with Theatricos?
The collaborative event.
The collaborative event.
Not a fringe event. We're doing two. We've got a major show going on, and we've got a partnership with Sedona International Film Festival where we're bringing them back to Flagstaff, and all of that's happening during ArtX.
Nice. I like that narrative. Thank you, guys.
Julie has her hand up, so she probably has something to say. She's much more intimate with all of this than I am, which was the goal of hiring her.
Yes, it's working out really well for Jonathan. I just wanted to let you know that the collaborator submission form is on the website and is live. So if you had a project or an event or a listing that you'd like to go ahead and submit for, then we'll be bringing that to our committee members to vote yay or nay, and it'll be listed on the website, as well as our partnership with Flag Live, who's dedicating their May print issue to ArtX.
Are there any fringe events that are youth oriented?
So the only one that I know is for sure happening at this current moment is MoCAF, who's going to partner with us on Friday evening at the Orpheum. It's going to be a later evening event, so probably not youth focused, but that's the only one I know for sure. There's a lot of other talk about what might be happening, so TBD on that. But the whole intention of all of the projects, the placements, the partnerships, and the venues is that as much of this would be open Friday afternoon and evening and all day Saturday, so that any age can attend at no cost for the ArtX funded projects, and that they would be in accessible locations.
I would really like to see RX have a category that's focused on young people.
We want that too.
Right.
Yeah, and I just want to, give mad kudos to the team at Creative Flagstaff and you, John, for putting this together. For those that don't know, this has been a discussion for over 10 years now. John's predecessor, Jonathan New, started it. We didn't know what it looked like then, but we worked towards it and built the synergy of momentum that Jonathan Stone has picked up and hit the ground running with it. The snowball effect has really come to great size, and I really appreciate you coming through to fruition. We're finally seeing this through after all these years. I remember those early meetings, those early days. It looks a lot cooler than whatever I thought it could have when we were looking at it in 2011. So thank you for that, and thank you for putting a team together that's handling it so well.
Well, thank you.
Any other comments from the commission, folks?
It looks fabulous. I would just like to see it even more.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's the point, right? Is to give everyone a taste.
Thank you. I think we can move forward. And staff, I have a hard stop in 8 minutes. I sent you guys an email. I hope that Vice Chair Lubarsky can wrap the meeting up once I leave. All we have is discussion items and two from items at the end. So hopefully you're okay with my making my dinner reservation. So moving forward to the innovation and capacity building grants.
Yes, thank you. I'll thank you all again for the opportunity to present. So you get a twofer today on Creative Flagstaff awarded projects. This one is our more traditional project cycle. So the ArtX is what we would consider kind of a focused project cycle. I'll explain that in a second. I'm getting ahead of myself. So I was asked to come present on the 2023 project grants. And so most of you should be familiar with our grant programs. Our flagship program is the General Operating Support Grant Program. I left a couple of the the guidelines that are on our website. You can download in print form if you wanted to look at those for general operating support. And then the more recent ARPA funded Capacity Innovation Project Grant, which is open now, and then special grant programs, which generally for us special grant programs take the form of more focused project calls, right? So there's still projects, and they generally go to nonprofits. In this case with ArtX, we kind of took more in the spirit of a pilot. We wanted to see what kind of responses came from the community for the pilot amount, but we ended up getting probably more private applications than nonprofit applications. And so we'll look at how we diversify that going forward. But the other special grant programs would be things like the micro grant that we did for Digital Resource Center participation, as well as the COVID relief funds that came through primarily during the initial period of the pandemic, which we were able to do in sort of 2 tranches. And that was actually commingled with other private funds that we secured to support those initial relief dollars. And then, but generally things fall into 2 buckets. general operating support, which is largely unrestricted, and the capacity innovation project, which is, you know, show us your ideas in the space of innovation or in what is going to maybe benefit your work in the long term in terms of capacity building. And then everything else underneath that is just shades of that in terms of how we might be focusing where we want to catalyze creative outputs from the community. Next slide. Oh, sorry, this slide. It's weird, I'm looking at my laptop, which is not the one driving the screen. So we had $400,000 of BBB pass through for fiscal year 23. That and we committed $317,500 to the general operating support for the spring cycle, which means those are general operating support for this current fiscal year. And then that 400,000 was a $40,000 increase from our fiscal year 22 pass through from 360 to 400. So we appreciate that baseline increase to support our nonprofit community. And then what we're talking about today is our regular fall cycle, which was moved a few years ago to the fall so that we could have reduce the burden on the review committees and also provide just differentiation between the project cycle and the general operating support cycle. So this year we had $150,000 available to award of $150,000 ARPA revenue replacement funds, which the city council had championed and pushed forward. And so we're happy to administer those on their behalf. And then 40,000, like we just discussed, went to the board designated ArtX project grants. And then we had 42,000. I don't remember what that note means. I apologize. I'm not exactly sure what 42,500 is representing there, and unallocated pass-through, but we did have some, oh, now I get it. Okay, sorry. Which meant we had 42,500 in unallocated funds to pass through on top of the 317,500 that was awarded, and and then we had other returned canceled grants from previous cycles. And so that allowed us to give more than that 42,500 to give 49,300 in the project cycle in terms of what we were certain we had available to award. 13 of 19 applications were awarded, and unique for the project cycle, all were awarded at the maximum requester eligibility. So basically what the committee did was they ranked them, and then they said, what projects do we believe have merit to fund as they are presented, and then we're able to provide the maximum award. That is only because of the ARPA funding that was in this. Normally, we're able to, we have much less to give out, and the committee has to make harder decisions. But they all felt that those funds were well placed with all the projects that were being asked, that they could be important.
And just to be clear, the fall cycle is the innovative and capacity building project grants.
Right. There was a separate aspect to that where we worked with the city to ask the appropriate questions on the application to determine if the applications were eligible for the ARPA funding, so met the ARPA funding criteria. And then the committee made the decision if they wanted to recommend funding for any projects from the ARPA pot instead of the BBB pot, and which allowed them more flexibility in terms of how much they can award. So this next slide. So the scoring criteria, just so you know, projects are scored on 4 things. That's innovation or capacity building. Applicants are asked to select how they want to be scored. So is their project more about innovation, or is it about building capacity? That way we're not having sort of colliding criteria where you know, something that is really important for capacity building may ultimately result in not something very innovative. But is extremely important to fund. And so we don't want those criterias to dilute each other. And then on innovation, is this a great experience or trial run or something that proves something to our community, or is it artistically unique that enhances our community that would be otherwise not pursued? I'm guessing somebody left, or
Yeah.
Mike, sorry, I'm not looking at the screen. The alignment, you can see on our website these, and I printed it out, it talks about what alignment is. We're generally talking about, is the project aligned with the applicant's mission or strategic goals? So internal alignment with that organization. They're not proposing a project that is outside of their mission. And then there's external alignment, and that is alignment with the values of the city and the BBB tax funds, and I'm paraphrasing here, but also the values of Creative Flagstaff in terms of what we see as our strategic work and vision for the community. And then, of course, the ultimate alignment being public funds is under public benefit. And so that is ultimately, is this money going to benefit the public in some way? And that the public is a participant and is able to experience it. And then lastly, opportunity for success. Does the project leadership have the necessary skill? All those things that you would expect. And did they demonstrate that in their application to the committee that they believe that this is something that will succeed if in fact it is funded? And also related to that, one of the unique things we do with our project grant program, and you don't see this very often, if ever, is that we ask our applicants to define the minimum award. And that is maybe where you get some of these larger amounts, but it's also but we also educate them, please give us a range, right? Because ultimately, not everyone's going to get a full award, generally speaking. So what is the minimum that you can accept and be successful with the grant? And because we've had issues in the past, in the pre-COVID times, everything since COVID started is uncertain, and best intentions sometimes don't result in projects delivered. But in the before times, we had this algorithm approach to awarding things where we ultimately would maybe award something that then if a project couldn't go forward, and then we'd end up having projects that were canceled. And so by asking for the minimum, we're acknowledging and we're wanting our applicants to be honest about what truly is what do they need to be successful, and then what do they ideally want to make their project go forward. And so that is a part of that opportunity for success, because we also reduce the chances of us giving out awards that are too small for a given project. Next slide. Oh, sorry, you went ahead of me. Yeah, the grant making process, it just summarizes our process, which is visible on the guidelines and on our website. It's extensive. Some would say too extensive, but it is certainly thorough. Next slide. This is a list of all of the project grants that were awarded in this cycle. So the 13 of the 19, it totaled $141,900, and everyone was awarded their maximum or the maximum eligible. So we did have one applicant that submitted a budget that did not demonstrate the appropriate match. And so we scaled the award to where it was within the confines of their match. But just to be transparent, that was Lowell Observatory. They asked for more, they got 13. That was because their budget didn't justify the larger award.
Jonathan, can you go into some of these?
Yes.
I guess that's what I was hoping that we really could hear about.
Yeah, so let's
Individual
go on to
exciting
the
grants.
next slide. So these are, as you can imagine, with the larger awards, these are some pretty exciting projects. We always have exciting projects that apply, and I'll talk a little bit about them in the ones that I think are especially interesting. So Lowell Observatory, they had, I don't know if you know, they're in the process of developing a immersive theater at the Astronomy Discovery Center. And so a large wraparound, I don't know exactly how it works, LED screen. And so this specific funding request was to support participation through essentially a apprentice program for Indigenous individuals to learn about the filmmaking process and to better set themselves up for success in other filmmaking projects. Ultimately, the film itself is from I understand it's from an Indigenous perspective, but it's really nice that they will have these additional apprentices on board to support that work, but then hopefully it will provide an opportunity for workforce development. Yeah.
And the topic of the film is actually Indigenous scientists, right?
Yes.
Yes. So I was so excited about these projects. You can tell I was part of the grant committee. I'm excited to talk about the project.
And I summarized them all down into a summary statement and pulled the most salient, what I thought was the most, but yes, it is an Indigenous. And Jana has also read more of these applications than I have, because it's not my job to read them.
And I think also Commissioner Zecker was on this
Yes, yes.
particular committee as
Yes.
well.
Commissioner Zecker was. So, you know, the Lowell one is incredibly exciting. I think the ultimate, you know, who knows how expensive that whole project is, right? But is a really exciting one for us. And Theatricos, you know, bringing a little bit of Harkins to downtown, and in their partnership with the Sedona International Film Festival, and able to provide the projector half of the audiovisual project that they're doing in their theater. And as we know, digital is and mixed media, multimedia is so important in all of our art spaces going forward.
And your staff member was no less enthusiastic about this one because she goes to art cinema film festivals all the time. So, just so you know.
And then Music on the Square, we're able to expand the downtown programming throughout the summer. I think the Flagstaff DBA's goal is to have programming essentially from Thursday to Sunday, which is really important in a community that wants to invite walkability and traffic downtown. Gas-fired soda kiln. This one is pretty exciting because the Coconino Community College is in the process of building building a new soda kiln. And somebody tried to explain to me what gas-fired soda means, but I understand it's pretty innovative. And not only will it expand their capacity for their students, but I do understand that the community college has an eye towards making some of these resources available to the public. Again, I know they cut that public programming years ago because of funding issues. Black Wool and Fiber, they're returning with their festival. This will be the last time that they will be awarded through a project grant for their festival. But if you haven't been, there's usually alpacas and other furry things that they shave on site and do other things with them, and then lots of textile arts.
Yeah, they used to partner with the Pioneer Museum.
Yep,
and they're going to, you know, they'll start applying for the operating grants versus the
Yes.
capacity building. And this is the first time they kind of came out on their own. So good.
Yeah, so we're treating this as their final capacity building year. They got to join the masses in the general operating support program. The museum educator for M&A. So M&A is reorganizing and trying to develop out their education program. And so this is a capacity building grant for them to support the creation of that position. But I think more importantly, the capacity aspect is one of those position's initial responsibilities, and that is to help develop their education program. And of course, then find the resources to continue to fund that program. I imagine some of it is based on earned revenue.
Yeah, they'll be developing a lot of curriculum for the schools.
Right. Do you want to do this?
Where's my pretty pictures? That's what I wanted.
I'm sorry. I was looking, so the reason we have so many pretty pictures for ArtX is because the artists have been submitting for their bios. And I was looking for pictures of some of these, like, and trust me, the photos of gas-fired soda kilns are really not that interesting. So, and so there would just be clip art for some of this if I did. Northern Arizona Book Festival is celebrating 25 years, and so they'll be doing an anthology. And it's really neat to see the diversity of the work they intend to bring to that anthology. And in terms of how it's inclusive of diverse voices. And 3D Printer Lab, this is a new.
I believe it was local.
I
That's what
believe so,
that's
too.
what I called. Tina, do you remember? Oh, this might not be-
I couldn't hear the question. Can you say it one more time?
For the anthology, is it all local authors? My understanding is it is.
For the book festival, the Northern Arizona Book Festival, the anthology, capacity or innovative project award. Do you remember if it was an anthology of local writers?
I believe so, or at least they have to have some sort of local tie.
Yeah, it was very emphasis on local, but it wasn't entirely. That's what my recollection is.
Sure. Yeah, I know that Northern Arizona Book Festival welcomes writers from the outside, but it is celebrating the writers that have had a place in the Northern Arizona Book Festival history with Flagstaff. 3D Printer Lab. So a new one, a new applicant last cycle to create a Flagstaff is Co-op. And so they have a maker space out off of 66 that way. No, that way. Where are we? Right. That way. Okay, yeah, that way. And they are, not necessarily traditionally an art organization in terms of their mission, but a making organization. But I think it's really a neat reflection of you provide people tools that will create something and give them the opportunity to create something. And so a mix between artists and hobbyists to people that are actually running small businesses, making things out of the maker space. But they wanted to increase their capacity by bringing in two 3D printer machines because of the challenges of just having one in terms of being able to actually be a useful tool for their space because of how long it takes to print something in 3D. If you've ever watched one of those go, it's like watching paint dry, but actually it might even be slower than watching paint dry. So
Yeah, it is.
so Flag Shakes, interestingly, they're retooling a little bit. And in the past, they've done like youth camps and stuff. They are doing a new youth-focused programming that is theater for young audiences. And so this is a movement. And there are theaters like in the Valley that do theater for young audiences. Flagstaff has lots of children's theater, or we have had lots of children's theater in the past. This is a innovation example of doing theater for children, but not necessarily having children in the cast. And so that's what Theater for Young Audiences is. And I believe they're intending to use a local playwright for that. I've seen the call out on their social media, so hopefully they found somebody good. ONA Innovates. I was looking up these artists, Joseph Morag, Cindy Land, and Rafael Galvez are doing a really interesting mashup of mixed media, multimedia with a concerto that they intend to bring. And the images I found, this is one of those ones where I could have put an image on a slide that would have made a difference, and was really exciting. And so I'm looking forward to going to see that performance and those outside artists come in and join the orchestra. Local Music Library, this is a really scrappy organization that's based out of Liminal. And Crater Radio. And so they're intending to create a database for local musicians. And that database will serve their radio station as well as a forward-facing website so that the public can come see and learn about Flagstaff musicians and music. And then Last two, Flagstaff Foundry Workshop Series. So Flagstaff Foundry is looking to develop a workshop series beyond any sort of workshop program they've done in the past. And most importantly, the workshops will be free. And so they're focusing those on important things related to performance. So there'd be stage presence, improv, stage management, audio production, show production, et cetera. And then lastly, I don't know if they've never been funded, but we're excited to see Sunnyside, the Market of Dreams, as an applicant and a recipient, especially because there is a good aspect of their mission that is around artist entrepreneurship, food, culinary, and other creative endeavors. And so this funding will support the startup costs for the community cooperative multicultural market and art venue. And then hopefully that'll slingshot them into a more sustainable, not always volunteer-driven model. If you've seen on social media how the Sunnyside tends to go. So those are the projects that we're funded. We're excited to be able to give out as much money as we were. There were a lot of capacity projects that we think can be truly catalytic for the organizations that were received them. And so I don't know if I went over time or if there was.
Jonathan, I just had one really quick question about that. Did you see quite a few new applicants this time around, or is there, how many of those do you see that are new?
So on this list, that would be new applicants, would be Music on the Square, so the Downtown Business Alliance. We have funded the Heritage Square Trust, so it's kind of an analog. Another new applicant would be Co-op is relatively new, the local music library, and then Sunnyside. We have done some other outreach specifically to organizations that we know would qualify, especially in maybe some of the areas of emphasis that we're maybe underrepresented on. And what I mean by that is that the program is for art, science, or culture. A lot of times we get a blending of all three, but we do seem to have an underrepresentation of culturally specific organizations. And so we've reached out to the Murdoch Center, Southside Community Association, and like those to say, hey, by our criteria, you technically qualify, you should consider submitting for a project or general operating support. So, but yeah, we've had a number of new applicants the last few years, which is exciting.
Good, thank you for doing that extra work.
I'd just like to say that the sense that I got on the committee this time, obviously it was my first time on there, but the people had been on, was that they were so excited that there was this extra funding this year and the ability to fully fund these nonprofits in their capacity, building process. And I just think that that's something we want to keep in mind going forward, because I think I got the sense in the past that there were some great projects put forward and they could only get, either they had to give everybody a little bit, or that critical amount, but they couldn't really meet the needs of the community. So obviously staff, I want to keep an eye on that. And I was so excited about this group and everything that they were doing. I just really wanted to, celebrate this and say, we did have this extra funding this year. We might not, and we're building in more funding, out of the Arts and Science Fund, so to really support our nonprofits, both in operating. I know if Chair Cruz was here, he talked about, well, you can't, if you don't have your operating covered, you can't even do these capacity buildings. And so they are, organically intertwined. But I thought you could literally see how this was adding to the community, each and every one of these projects. It's very exciting.
And Jana, while we're on this subject, can you kind of speak to, if Jonathan, are you done with it?
I'm here to respond to it.
Yeah, I was just curious if you could speak to, since Creative Flagstaff isn't necessarily a line item on our budget for BPAC. If you could kind of speak, and it's a little bit outside of our purview to an extent, if you could kind of speak to our relationship with Creative Flagstaff.
Actually, would Mr. McIntyre like to respond to that, because he's probably has a more fuller answer for you.
Yeah, so how to answer that question. generally speaking, the BPAC has overseen projects, the city's role within beautification, public art, on all the city-funded pieces. While the funds that have gone through Creative Flagstaff have been somewhat separate, even though they come from some of those same funds. And these are partly due to the fact that it's contracted at this point. But also just in terms of that's one way to flow resources out into the nonprofit sector. And I don't think I'm answering your question exactly the way it's
It's all right. It's all right.
I'm gonna make a big, can I make a stab? I think you're, yes, you don't oversee the elite staff does not oversee the selection process and how the funds are distributed. So we have a partnership with Creative Flagstaff to do that process for us.
Correct.
And one of the reasons that is, put into a partnership and, contract with Creative Flagstaff is it was, I think, seen a long time ago, maybe that, maybe some of these nonprofits would start lobbying, commissioners and possibly it would go to council because of the amounts.
You can see this with United Way as well for the Health and Human Services. We have a long tradition of making sure that a nonprofit who has the expertise to look into that specific area is responsible for that granting process so that the commissioners and the council are not having 430, whichever the right number is, nonprofits come to them specifically and individually. And because that expertise is supposed to rely in this particular leadership.
No, and they do such a good job in their
Yeah.
grant making process, but did we
You
answer your
did,
question?
absolutely,
Okay,
absolutely.
just-
And thank you for that. We do make sure city staff's a part of the process, and in the contract, it requires some a review of their granting documents to make sure that it seems like a fair and impartial process.
Good.
But we also try to leave a fair amount of autonomy for Creative Flagstaff because that's what they're supposed to be good at, right?
Right.
And are good at.
And they
It's
are.
determining the right place to grant.
And we have asked, and obviously, we know that you guys give such great commitment to us, but we periodically been able to have commissioners on the selection panels as well. But it is hard because it is a lot of time to serve this commission and be on those selection panels. But I know you've been on the RTAX and Commissioner Zucker has been on the other grants.
Well, every year when this conversation comes up, before with Jonathan Denise, now with Jonathan Stone, I always like to throw it out there to see what kind of answer I get from the staff that year. And that was excellent, guys. But that was just a precursor to, the point I'm getting at. And so how does the BPAC, or how would you suggest or give advice for the BPAC to advocate for when the time comes to get more funding so we can have a more, so they can fund their nonprofits fuller? Where do we stand in that? How do we advocate for that?
I think that advocate, we put forth the annual budget and we did do an increase this year and we will be doing your vote on it. And I think I've already presented some of those numbers to you. I've broken it down into parts and then we're going to have the grand vote at the end. And those are your points to advocate, when we have those, discussions in the budget process.
Excellent, excellent. Because to me, that is extremely important. I've seen the level of our contribution kind of stagnate. And I'm seeing, as everything is evolving and getting bigger, them having that need. And I would like to do everything I can to fulfill that need when it's appropriate for us. Thank you.
It certainly is helpful to hear the commission's support and to understand, how that value is seen.
And there is an increase.
And there is an increase.
Excellent. Good work, guys.
So I have a question. It sounded like you had more applicants than you funded.
Yes.
And the ones that you didn't fund, was that because their proposals didn't fit their mission or?
Overall, their score was low. And so the selection committee chose a cutoff point and felt that those particular projects maybe were better suited to, at this point, we were anticipating having a second round to maybe reapply with a different, with feedback technology. And the, but,
I think one project was deemed not local.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah,
So-
there was a couple of different reasons, but they were just lower score.
But they ultimately fell below the line, what the, and there was sort of a clear break in the scores.
So it wasn't a matter of not having enough money
No.
to provide.
It was a matter of, are these appropriate uses of the city's resources as those projects are presented? And we don't want to get a reputation for funding everyone. I don't know, maybe we.
They're all worthy.
If they're all worthy, I think it is.
I think there's a couple of things in there though that sometimes are worth parsing out. One is you want to make sure the money's a good investment, and that's something that we ask Creative Flagstaff to do, right? They all may be worthy ideas, but as mentioned earlier, if it doesn't seem like there's the organizational capacity to have a successful project, it's not a good investment of tax dollars at this point. And unfortunately, the world that we live in at times is one where a news outlet would be very excited to talk about something that was a misuse of city dollars, even if there was 50 great examples of it going well. So we do ask Creative Flagstaff to take a deeper look at whether there's capacity there to actually accomplish the project. It's not whether it's worthy, like in terms of any sort of moral or cosmic space, right? It's I think to some extent, is there the capacity to address that? Because we have that also with many of our other grant projects. Is this going to be successful? And I know that does create a barrier. I've heard that from folks in the community that, if you don't have experience, how do you get your first grant? And there is a challenge there, and hopefully we can build that capacity through organizations like Creative Flagstaff and these nonprofits learning. But we also really don't want to have a significant amount of the dollars not produce anything. And I mean, that's something that we could also probably hear guidance from in other places, but I feel like we love reporting to council how wonderfully the funds are used. Yeah. And it comes off a little differently if there's a lot being pulled back and having to be reallocated because it was an unsuccessful project.
Yeah,
Sorry, I hope you don't mind me just throwing.
Yeah, no, it's okay. We've had, we made the changes to the grant program after I started because we were seeing not a high attrition rate, but an attrition rate nonetheless in terms of projects returning funds or not even using the funds they were given. And so in terms of we improved by saying the minimum, right? We've also looked at our application process. This year for general operating support, we're piloting an interview-based application. So they don't even have to write a written narrative, except for just a general summary of what the organization is. That's for general operating support. So we try new things to work on accessibility, but one of the important things is with the funds, projects that were not funded is are we able to help them understand why maybe they scored lowly? We always make that feedback available to people, and we can point to very clear examples in the review panel's discussion as to why a score might become what it is. So we use a submittable. So we track pretty meticulously all of our reviewers' notes and their notes relative to different aspects of the score, so that we can provide that feedback. But I do know that of the unfunded ones, there was at least one or two that I think the committee would be responsive to if brought back to them in maybe a different form, and it would be better aligned with the criteria. And then, as Jana said, there may have been a couple that just had some eligibility issues that ultimately were decided after the staff review of that eligibility.
That's great. I was kind of drafting off of Anthony's question about sufficient funds. And it's nice to know that they weren't, it's important, I think, to have a competitive process on the one hand, but not too competitive. You really do want to nurture local art and local events. So I appreciate that. And also I appreciate that you're giving that kind of feedback. I think that's really so important.
Yeah. And there's some other things that the committee may not even be aware of yet, but that have been discussed in terms of accessibility, things that we weren't able to incorporate into this cycle, but we will bring up for discussion with the committee in the fall, for the fall project cycle about improving accessibility. There's questions around what is considered a match and about when and how should a match be required, and how do we support the cash flow of the efforts of those. And so there's always competing priorities when we talk about issues of accessibility, but I've worked with my team to be as responsive as we possibly can. We made some changes in how the money flows to us, so we can make it easier to flow back out and stuff like that, so that we don't have those pinch points unnecessarily. But there are some other processes and guideline improvements that we continue to make.
Can I have one more piece just about the funding?
Yes,
So
please.
as you guys probably know, the funds that go to Creative Flagstaff are all out of the Arts and Science program. And that's specific, so we don't have to get into a question of which nonprofits. But that has been one of the challenges, is that, well, the Arts and Science fund is much less robust in terms of a percentage of the BBB. And so there hasn't actually been fund capacity in arts and sciences for the last couple of years, which is part of why even getting another 40,000 to Jonathan and his team last year was pretty exciting. And again, another increase this year. So we can certainly talk in the future about how other funds might be able to be brought to bear or whatnot. But that's the main problem there, is arts and sciences is where this contract is pulled from. And that fund has not had capacity in the last few years, unfortunately. We do a lot of great work, both with Creative Flagstaff and with some projects in the city. But anyways, I just wanted to clarify that fund question. I hope that's helpful.
I appreciate that feedback, David. And I know that sometimes my questions may seem, for those who've been here the whole time, like belabored or duplicative or whatever, but as we evolve as commissioners, I think every time we hear the story reverberated to us, we pick up other pieces from it, and I always get a lot of that from you. Thank you.
Good question.
I'll just follow up that Creative Flagstaff is a growing and evolving organization, and we really, really are appreciative of the components of our work that you guys have specifically had hand in supporting, and that is, through the ArtX allocation that you voted on, I think this fall, and which gave us the courage to go out and hire Julie, and
pay for that website.
and pay for that website. Yeah, that, let's just say we're always receptive to the commission's ideas on how your work overlaps with our work and how we can support each other in developing our public spaces and developing arts and culture in the community. So we have hope it's apparent that we have a very open and collaborative mindset, and that at the end of the day, we measure success by the capacity of the overall community, and of course, our capacity too. But to the extent that our capacity is important to support the capacity of the rest of the community.
Nice.
Well, thank you, Jonathan. I'm going to just make sure that are there any more comments or questions for Jonathan on this? Well, I really appreciate you coming and walking us through this, and of course, all the work that you're doing and all the good things you're doing in the community.
Well, thank you.
Great, thanks. We're going to move on then. We're at the close of our meeting with 2 from items. These are for informational purposes only. The commission may not discuss these items. The commission may, however, request that these as a future discussion or action item. So, yeah.
No.
Not today. Okay, and I don't have anything, or nor that I hear anything from Chair Cruz. Commission or Councilwoman Miranda.
Hi. So I guess I'm gonna put on my store owner hat that I am getting involved in the ArtX, and I have a live painter that will be Lindsay, she's a muralist in town, in the courtyard. And I just encourage everyone to reach out to those that you might know. It could be an attribute to this exciting initial project. I asked her during my meeting with Julie and she said, yes, of course. So there's a lot of creative folks out there that probably would like space or like, to be involved, and everyone in the room probably knows one. So just throwing it out there. I'm very, very excited, and thank you for bringing that to Flagstaff. And then the project grant program, such an exciting list. I can't wait to read it off at council tomorrow. Great.
Any to from the commission?
I don't know if this is correct time to say it, but I was just gonna remind the commission that I think this Saturday night, Flagstaff Foundry is happening. It's Flagstaff Saturday Night Live. Go enjoy local talent doing multiple discipline acts.
Where are they?
I don't know.
I usually perform at the Momentum Aerial Space.
Thank you.
I'm not 100% certain that's where they are this weekend.
Yeah, that's where they are this weekend too. I know the space, I just don't know what it's called.
Any other to from? Okay.
Can I also make, I'm sorry, I missed announcements. So again,
Your hand is up.
Yeah.
Sorry, I missed your hand.
it's okay. Next month at the end of April is going to be the annual undergrad symposium that my office is putting on, and we are actually working with the BFA, the Fine Arts Bachelor's Capstone Projects, and opening up the art gallery and interior design expo, and we need people to give feedback to these students on their work. So if anyone's interested in seeing what our students are up to, we also have one who's he's going to be doing a presentation on the Black history of Route 66, which has been a collaboration with the Murdoch Center, who we've done a lot of work with. So please sign up if you can come out on April 28th and provide feedback to our students and see what they're doing.
Where do people sign up?
If you go to, it's nau.edu/symposium.
Great staff. Send us an email about.
Yes, I can send that to you, Jana.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And I'll make sure it's distributed.
I appreciate it.
Are there any requests for future agenda items?
I was thinking about one. So we know that there's an extra flagpole out front of the city hall. And I know that there's a time where council discusses what flags go on them. And I just wanted to know if the commission thought it would be appropriate for us to have a discussion around maybe promoting Art History Month and seeing how we could infuse that into the council discussion when that comes, or have more history about that as a future agenda item topic when we have time, because it's not really all that pressing.
Is this a new project request?
No.
It would require a flag or?
It might be, I don't know, good question. See, that's what the discussion will be about.
Okay.
And who knew there was Art History Month?
I don't even know if there is, to be honest with you, but I'm pretty sure it's like in October or something like that. I don't know. I always have half information, or I dream it up at night and I bring it to this room.
Do we have two commissioners who are willing to support that as an item for discussion?
And if not, it's okay, guys.
Sure, let's talk about that.
I'll second it.
Great, thank you.
It is October.
Any other future agenda items? And our next meeting is Monday, April 10th at 4 o'clock, hybrid or here. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, see you next time. Hey, Vincent.
Good.